Hey, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We're going to just take about a minute here to let folks get logged in. And in the meantime, if you want to get familiar with the Zoom Q&A panel or question box that's down at the bottom there, that's where you'll want to put any questions throughout the webinar. And then at the end, we will go through as many questions as we possibly can. So yeah, we'll just wait a few more minutes. There's quite a few folks rolling in, and I know that Zoom recently did an update, so people may have to
Yep.
do that quick update before logging in. So we'll give you a chance to do that. And then let's see, we'll give another about 30 seconds or so before we get started. Mike, how's that sound?
That works. You and I were just recently in Panama together. We ran the Discovery Tour, and we actually were there to watch the very first log go through the sawmill. Uh, that was exciting. That was
Yes,
great.
it was a neat day,
It
and
was
hopefully we can get some of these folks down there in June with us.
in June. Do you know the dates? We'll talk about it again at the end. In
Yeah.
fact, I don't have a slide for that, so please at
Yep.
the end mention that again,
Yep.
please.
Absolutely.
But what are the dates
Alright.
for that? June something or other. Yeah.
June 22 and 23.
June 22 and 23. Yeah. And the other thing that we did, which was pretty cool, was the forestry company, Heyo Forestal, had a whole setup where people could actually plant their own teak trees to start as seedlings, which was really neat too. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're just about a minute after 5 p.m. Eastern here. So let's get started so that we don't take up everybody's evening.
All right, Betsy, you ready for me?
I'm ready for you. Yep.
All right. Very good. All right. We good? Everybody see the screen? Betsy?
Looks good on my end. Ready for you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, super. Well, it's always nice to be here talking about really one of my favorite topics, which is the teak plantation in Panama. We also have teak plantations in Nicaragua, but today's presentation will largely be about our teak plantation and the opportunity to own a piece of that teak plantation in Panama. Betsy and I, you may have come on a minute ago and just heard Betsy and I talking about our recent trip to Panama in January. We had a group of investors come down, and a lot of folks were able to see their trees for the first time and see our sawmill in action for the very first time as well. So lots of things happening, lots of great progress on several fronts down there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go through just a pretty straightforward PowerPoint presentation that'll talk about why folks are investing in teak, what it's like to do that, how it works. We're going to touch on the sawmill because that's a very integral part of the return on investment to everybody here. And then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So generally, there are two reasons that people invest in teak. One is the profit, is the return on investment, and the other is a residency, a second residency program. And it's phenomenal. It's a great program. We like to call it the Plan B, right? It's a residency in Panama that allows you to live there for as long as you would like. It's a permanent residency, and it can accompany your investment in teak. Teak ownership is a great way to achieve and acquire that second residency. We're not going to spend very much time on that tonight. We'll mention it a couple times, but largely this presentation is about the teak and the teak investment itself. If you're interested in the residency piece, Betsy and some of our residency and property consultants can really help you with that and provide a lot more detail on that aspect of the program. But the peace of mind element really is important. So let's see. There we go. Changing slides. I'd like to just start by mentioning that our company's been around for 29 years. ECI Development was a development company that my business partner Joel Nagel and I started 29 years ago now. We've been working in the region actually for about 33 years with a small little mortgage company that became a bank in Belize, and it's been a bank in Belize for 22 years. So we're in the finance side of things, on the banking side, we're in the development side as a real estate development and resort hospitality company. And then we're also in the agricultural space. And our agricultural business started in 1999, so 25, almost 26 years ago now. And I think track record's really important. I hope you do too. I hope you see the benefit of working with companies that have been working in the region for 3 decades, getting to know people, building relationships, and having the experience that allows you to navigate these sometimes challenging countries and ways of doing business. But having done so successfully for over 30 years, you can feel comfortable that we are strong in the region. General map of Panama. You can see Panama City right there, in between the yellow and the salmon colored. Our properties, our teak plantations, are in the Darien province, which is circled on the right hand side. And if you look at the location of our 3 plantations and our sawmill, which is located right next to one of our plantations, you can see that it's strategically located in the heart of the country that does great teak growing. So much of teak has to do with the geography, and we're going to talk more about that later. The Darien province of Panama provides the perfect location for teak growth. It also is the perfect location because it's only about 3.5 hours from Panama City. So when the lumber is produced in the sawmill, it can be transported very easily to Panama City, onboarded to ships, containers, to be shipped anywhere around the world for export. Going all the way back, you can see I'm in my home in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and literally right across the street is the Bavarian Inn, and the Bavarian Inn hosts the Rotary meeting every Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m. And before I moved to Nicaragua, I think many of you know I lived in Nicaragua for 14 years, but from 1999, 2000, 2001, I lived here in this same home, and I walked across the street every Tuesday morning and had breakfast before the Rotary meeting. But I was missing a lot of meetings. I was headed off to Panama, and I was looking at farmland and property, and then I was meeting forestry companies. Then we were hiring a forestry company and starting our plantation. And so I was missing a lot of these Rotary meetings. And in that club, if you miss a meeting, you have to walk up to the front of the room and you have to put $10 in the jar there that's for the next good project that everybody's working on, and you have to say where you were. Oh, I was in Panama last week, right? So whatever. And I was in Panama last week. I was in Panama last week, and it happened 3 or 4 times. And some of the people around the 10 top table were having breakfast would be like, "What are you doing down there, Cobb? You're in Panama. You've been there 3 times in the last 6-8 weeks." I'm like, "Yeah, we're looking for land, and we're gonna plant teak trees, and in 25 years we're gonna cut them down, and we're gonna make a lot of money." And people are like, "You're gonna what? How long? Where?" Like, "Yeah, Panama, teak trees, 25 years." And they really thought I was crazy. And I remember the answer that maybe the second time it sort of came up, I came up with the answer, and it's the right answer. It's the answer that really has carried me for all of these years now. And it's simply this: in 25 years, I'm either going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this, or in 25 years, I'm not going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this. It's been 25 years. I am really glad we did this. 25 years comes. I think 25 years is a hurdle, a mental hurdle. We talk about investments and we talk about barriers to entry, right? And barriers to entry are actually a great thing, because if you can get through that barrier and make the investment, the barrier prevents other people. Well, the 25-year time cycle for teak harvest, right, is a barrier. It's a psychological barrier only, right? And so many people throw their hands up, I can't do 25 years, can't do 25 years. Okay, most people don't, but that's what makes it a great investment. Teak is actually being harvested 8 to 10 times faster than it's being replanted, because most people can't look at 25 years and say, "Yeah, 25 years, it's coming." I hope it's coming for me and you. All right, I mean, we don't know what we have tomorrow, but generally 25 years comes for somebody, whether it's us or our kids or our grandkids, and so it's coming, and we can either have planted the teak trees and reap the harvest in 25 years, or 25 years from now, we'll be like, "Gosh, I wish I would have planted those teak trees," right? So 25 years comes, and it's a great barrier to entry in this investment. And so I look at that as a great thing, not a scary thing. And now that the first 25-year process has happened and we're ready to do a harvest next year, like, it's a big deal. Like, we're going to cut down the trees and we're going to make a lot of money. And I'm really glad I did it. And I hope some of you understand that and decide to get involved as well. One of the key things about any agricultural investment is hiring professional managers, right? We've been working in the region 32 years, 33 years this year in the banking business first. I'm not a banker, so we hired professional bankers to run our bank. Then we started a development company 29 years ago. I'm not a developer. I'm not an architect. I'm not an engineer. So we hired really, really smart professionals to run our development company. And when we started our teak plantation back in 1999, we hired this guy right here, Jacobo Melamed. Back then, he was just one of their many forestry engineers, project engineers, and he was the one that showed us around and helped us find the property. And Heo Forestal is the company that we hired. Well, Jacobo is now a general manager and part owner of the business. So he has grown with the business over the last 25 years. But Heo Forestal is a powerhouse organization in Panama, managing plantations for many, many people like us. And that professional management is so important because what that does is it gives consistency over the 25 years for the product to be cared for, trimmed, thinned, and we'll look at some pictures here in a second that show what that process is. Because you can plant teak trees in the middle of the jungle and they'll grow, but they don't produce good lumber. Good lumber, great lumber is a scientific management process, and that's what you get with a company like Heo Forestal. Scientific management that delivers the best, tallest, straightest lumber logs that can then be turned into lumber, of course. I mentioned earlier the Darien province has an incredibly ideal location for the growing of teak. The geography is perfect. It has 3 to 5 months of dry season with no rain. No rain is what gives teak the hardness quality that makes it so valuable in the marketplace. That's critically important. The rest of them are important too, but that dry season is absolutely fundamental to producing high quality teak. The other elements are equally important, but that one is the most important. These are what teak seedlings look like. Back in 1998, our teak trees were little seedlings like this. And then in 1999, we cleared a 100-acre cattle pasture that we had purchased. It was full of brush. It had been deforested, had been burned every other year to keep the brush down, so to speak, so the cattle could have grass to eat. We came in and we planted 44,000 baby teak trees. They're in the ground. You can see some of the bigger leaves, but you'll see very quickly by 2007, the trees are up. This is the dry season. The leaves, it's a deciduous tree. In the dry season, many of the leaves fall off. You can see how the ground has been kept clear, and the trees are now tall, straight trunks. One of the things that happened in 2008, if you were paying attention, and you were certainly in my industry, the real estate industry, or stocks, I mean, you saw just an incredible recession, both in real estate and the stock market taking huge hits. And my friend Steve Sugarrood has this quote, and he's absolutely right. The trees grow through recessions. They grow through real estate crashes. Trees, timber continue to do what they're supposed to do, no matter what's happening in the marketplace around us. And so from 2008 to 2012, our trees just kept growing. There they are. Yeah, there's our trees growing right on through economic and real estate crashes. Here's a picture in 2016 that you can see just how tall and straight the trees are. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We have a teenage teak plantation that we purchased a while ago. There's Betsy in one of the pictures. We always like to take people out. We have lots of fun. You can come out and see your trees. This was a farm that we acquired about 6 years ago now that had maybe 12-year-old trees on it when we purchased it, because we've had so much demand. So many folks have now inquired about how do we also own teak like you have. 2023, again, trees are getting big. They're thinning out. You can see a lot of the trees have been removed. And that's what you do. You continue to thin the trees so that the ones remaining can get bigger, bigger, bigger. Let's talk about the industry. Let's talk about who's owning teak and why they own teak. We'll change gears here a little bit. Um, you know, in the past, and I would say even up until maybe the last, 15, 20 years, even when we bought our very first plantation, a 100-acre plantation was viewed as something very, very small, almost not worth it, right? So we really kind of inched in at that 100-acre level because again, there are economies of scale. Once you're trying to manage a forest, many of the teak forests are in the hundreds, if not thousands of acres. And when you're talking about hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of acres, you're really talking about big, big, big money. You're talking about tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment to make it happen. And that's why you've had incredible, just the uber wealthy have owned teak for so long and timber for so long, because it really was only available to them to make those investments. But the reason people want to invest in teak are really threefold. One, we're giving back to Mother Nature, right? Deforestation is incredible. I mean, they are cutting down forests. What's it say there? 85 acres are destroyed every minute. Primary forest, jungle, rainforest, things like that. So deforestation is happening. The global demand is up. The global supply is down. One of the things I like about this slide, we're going to look at two elements of it. The circled part here, the green line on the left of that slide shows wild teak, jungle teak, and the prices of that teak from the early 70s until 2002, 2003. But what we see with the red line is plantation teak. And somewhere around maybe what, 2008, 9, somewhere in there, the value of plantation teak exceeded the value of a wild teak, because people understood the importance of the protection of the environment, and we wanted forestry certified, Forestry Stewardship Council, FSC certified lumber. And so all of a sudden the plantation lumber got lots more value. And then we can also see that from 1972 to the present, teak has on average every year increased in price 5.5%. And that's just the price of the teak. You imagine you got trees that are growing in value, physically growing, and then you've got the growth of the price of that teak over 53 years. Is that right? Yeah, 53-year track record on that. So strong track records. And this alludes to what I mentioned before, with teak being cut down, 8 to 10 times faster than anybody's replanting it. And if we just look at the simple economics of supply and demand, if more teak is in demand than people are planting today, in 25 years, imagine what teak will be worth. I mean, with that kind of an imbalance, supply and demand imbalance, I think it bodes well for teak prices in the future. And then lastly, what we see with timber generally, and teak in this case specifically, are above average returns, but without the volatility. And you can see the timber index way, way up. You can see S&P, it's up as well, but it kind of, spiky, and then inflation. So both the S&P and timber beat inflation significantly, but timber nicely does it without the volatility of the stock market. And if we just look at some numbers, you can just look at, again, 71 to, so about a 50-year track record. But pay attention. People look at the ROI, 15,000%, right? And that's a nice number. But actually, the number that I think is far more powerful is the internal rate of return. There are very few investments that will generate an internal rate of return in the double digits over long periods of time. And that is fundamentally the compounding of the investment. That's what internal rate of return is. It's really a compounding return. And when you can get those numbers into the double digits, it is powerfully producing wealth over the long term. Here are some people that invest a lot of money in timber. I mean, look at them. I mean, you got Malone, Turner, Emerson, Wright. I mean, these guys are in their 70s at least, maybe some of them in their 80s. They're still making 25-year investments. They're still making long-term investments, right? Why? Why? Because they understand that even if they're gone, and they probably would be in 25 years, right? That somebody will benefit from their investment in timber today, whether it's their kids, their grandkids. But it's also kind of alluding back to how timber and teak were in these hundreds and thousands of acre plantations. It was only these guys that could afford to get into it. They had the millions or tens of millions of dollars to invest in timber, right? And this is great. I mean, this is from last year, right? Look at number 5. Capital grew nearly threefold in the 5 years leading up to 2024. Okay, this is a timber closed fund. They oversubscribed at $1 billion, right? Look at number 2, institutional investors, pension schemes, and an insurance company and a trust, right? These are the big money investors. This is who's loading up on teak and timber because it produces incredible returns over long periods of time, right? But again, if you don't have tens of millions of dollars, what do you do? Well, maybe you're like these folks, these savvy investors who said, you know what? I'd like to own a quarter acre, a half acre, an acre of teak, because what we've done is we've taken the big plantation, 100 acres and 300 acres in another case, uh, and we've broken it up into smaller pieces so that regular investors, regular people like you and me, we can make this investment. And I don't use the word average because I don't think if you're on this webinar tonight, you're not an average investor. You're not. You are an exceptional investor. You're a savvy investor. You're looking at opportunities outside the stock market, outside the box, and that's what makes you an exceptional investor. You may not have tons of money, but that you're still exceptional and you're still savvy. You're not an average investor, and folks just like you have made the decision to own teak. The reason people own teak, the reason people use teak are these incredible qualities. Number one, naturally hard and durable. Teak is super hard. High quality teak is super hard. You have to have that dry season that we talked about before. If you have the dry season, the teak trees themselves cure and become exceptionally hard. The other thing that teak has, which makes it very valuable in the marine environment and the outdoor environment, is a very high oil quality, or quantity of oil in the wood. And so that oil protects it from fungus, rot, mold. It allows it to stay outside and do well in the elements. Those are the reasons that people have used it for outdoor furniture and shipbuilding for years. And if we just look at things like the price of teak, an Adirondack chair made out of, pine might be, $200. Oak might be, $300-400, right? When you get into teak, you're at $800. Same Adirondack chair, just what's it made of? $250 teak bath mats, right? Teak is sexy. People want teak. People are willing to pay more for teak, certainly for its qualities, but also for the panache. It says, hey, I can afford teak. These $50 million apartments in New York City going with teak hardwood flooring, teak custom gates. Again, these are kind of show off items, but it's how teak is used in the marketplace and why it continues to be just simply so valuable. Again, it does well outdoors. There's on the bottom, you can see the teak chair that was some kind of turns gray. That's what happens to teak if you don't varnish it on a periodic basis, but it doesn't rot. It doesn't go away. And then you clean it up, put a little varnish on it. It's a beautiful chair again. And then the Titanic had teak furniture, and some of that stuff sat at the bottom of the ocean for 80 years. And when it was brought up, it really looked as good as new. Going back to the story, yeah, people thought I was crazy, but at the end of the day, when you decide that you want to invest in teak, you own the land. You get title to land. It's yours. You own the land. You own the trees. They're your trees. If you tell us not to cut them down in 25 years, we won't cut them down. They're your trees. Most people would probably want us to cut them down. But again, your trees, you decide. But the most important thing here, and we'll touch on this towards the end again, is that you get to build a legacy because the cycle of harvest is every 25 years. So the trees are planted, you harvest in 25 years, you replant. And in 25 years, your kids get the harvest or your grandkids. And then they're replanted again, and the great grandkids, and so on and so on. So, what you're really building is an incredible legacy. It's a generational wealth stewardship tool. Timber does that. Teak does it exceptionally well.
Hi, everybody. Mike Cobb in Panama at our teak plantation. This is our mature plantation planted 23 years ago in the Darien province. Just a beautiful, beautiful teak plantation that once was a cattle pasture like this, deforestation. And you know what? It's wonderful to be able to come in and plant thousands and thousands of teak trees and turn a cattle pasture back into forest. It's also a very lucrative investment, and it's sustainable. You harvest in 25 years, you replant. Your children get the next harvest. 25 years later, there's another harvest. That's for your great-grandchildren, and so on and so on. Please give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Find out how you can take deforested farmland and turn it into beautiful forests and create generational wealth for your families for centuries in the future.
Yeah. Here are some numbers. I want to make one comment. The teenage teak is only available. We are almost sold out of our teenage teak plantation. It is only available with the purchase of 5 baby teak. So if you decide you want to invest in 5 baby teak parcels, you're entitled to also acquire one of the teenage teak parcels. The nice thing about that is you get a return in about 6-7 years. So it starts to ladder your return, right? So you get a return in 6-7 years, and then 25 million being like another 18, then your baby teak would come. And so you'll start to get this alternating return on investment by the laddering of the 2 different ages of teak. But if you just simply look, $7,000, 6,880, $7,000 turns into about $95,000 over the 25-year period. And so that's the kind of return that we're talking about with this. And this is medium quality teak. I always joke about, Garrison Keillor and Lake Wobegon, right? And all the children are above average. You know what? We're just saying that everything we do is average. Average quality, average volume of wood in the trees. Everything's just average. We just take some right down the middle. And if it's better than that, fantastic. If it's worse than that, well, that's risk, reward, and an opportunity. But when you hire people like Heyo Forestall to manage your plantation, and our plantation actually is slightly above average. So that's good news. But we base everything on average quality of wood, average volume of wood coming out of the forest. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time is right now. And if you've missed opportunities in the past, gosh, I wish I would have done something, bought a condo in Cancun or the Bahamas, or I wish I would have made that investment in Apple stock or whatever it is, right? We all have the coulda, woulda, shouldas, right? With the regrets. This is an opportunity to do something today that you will be very, very happy you did in 25 years. And your children will be happy in 50 years, and your grandchildren will be happy in 75 years. And it's one of those legacy investments that really pays out through many, many generations into the future. A key element to the investment is the sawmill. And when we first planted the plantation, we didn't have any outside owners. It was just a group of 6 investors. But when we started parceling out the teak parcels to pair up with the residency visa, which is why we initially did it, we weren't going to sell the plantation at all. We were approached by a company that said, hey, if you take your teak plantation, you break it up into smaller pieces, you could match it up with the investment qualification to allow somebody to get a Panamanian permanent residency. So that's what we did. We broke up our mature plantation into quarter-acre parcels and matched those up with the Friendly Nations visa in Panama, so people could get residency. And once we did that, what we realized was, we had to accelerate the return on investment, which we have by adding the sawmill. So here's how it works. Typically, if you own trees, you own a teak plantation, you cut down the trees, they're sold as logs, 3-meter sections, about 10-foot long logs. They're stuck in a container and they're shipped off to India, China. They're processed, turned into lumber, turned into furniture, and those finished products end up coming back to North America. But the differential between selling a log and selling the lumber is significant. It's a many times multiple depending on the finished product, whether it's lumber or some of the semi-finished products. But it's about 8 to 10 times the difference in price as a multiple if you're producing lumber over just selling the logs. And so we said, you know what? We're going to put together a sawmill. And this is probably a good place to say, why that's really important. Our business model is that our management company, Hardwoods International, and that's the company that owns the plantation that then offers these for sale. The company makes 20% of what you make as an investor. Now think about that for a second, right? You have trees. If we sell them as logs and you get X, we get 20% of X. If we take those logs and we turn them into lumber and you get 8X or 10X, we get 20% of 10X. Well, you know what? Our interests are aligned. My interest as the management company is to get you the most money possible, because the more I make for you, the more I make. That is great alignment of interest. And I look for that in my own investments. When I'm making investments, I look for alignment. And I hope you do too, right? Am I making money when you make money? Yes. Am I making more money if I help you make more money? Yes. The sawmill is the way to do that. The sawmill, you can see, is out here in the Darien province as well. Um, and it was site selected specifically to be near our plantations, but also near many other plantations, because the sawmill will not only process our lumber and your lumber if you decide to become an investor into logs to lumber, but we can process other people's too. And the sawmill is its own separate business. This is a picture of the sawmill design. Yeah, the thinnings we're working on right now. There's a lot of detail here. It's too much to go into, but very, very exciting. We hired a guy, Ryan Palmer. He put together the actual design, ordered the equipment, found the property, and here we are. Betsy's in the. I think maybe Betsy's taking that picture, but anyway, here we are putting the first log through the sawmill a couple months ago. We're going to practice on the thinnings, all the thinnings coming out of the mature plantation. We're going to practice on them this year. We're going to make mistakes. I know we're going to make mistakes. We're going to not dry them enough and the boards will warp. We're going to dry them too much and the boards will crack. We're going to figure all that stuff out this year with the thinnings, because those are ours. The thinnings belong to us, the management company. And so we will practice on our lumber so that when we do the harvest next year for the mature plantation, those trees will come out and be processed into lumber, high quality lumber, export quality lumber, but not just lumber, some what we call finished products, like the semi-finished products, like the lumber itself. But hardwood flooring is basically lumber that's been finished slightly more than just as lumber. And floor panels being one of the primary products that we will roll out with early on, because they're in high demand. They're flat pack, they're easy to ship, and we can get them exported very, very easily. About 25 to 30% of your log actually turns into sawdust, or can turn into sawdust or chips. And so we're looking at ways to use those residual products, compressed board, fuel pellets, and then also innovative products. The cellulose in teak is actually a very, very valuable product and can be used as a cellulose component in concrete to create stronger blocks, lighter blocks, and those will be used in the Panamanian domestic market. Mentioned before the importance of Forestry Stewardship Council, FSC. This certification is critically important if you want to export lumber to major distributors in the United States. The distributors that would then provide wood to people like Home Depot and Lowe's, and a lot of these specialty cabinetry manufacturers and door manufacturers. Those are the folks that really want to be able to tell their customers that they're using a Forestry Stewardship Council certified lumber product, because they know it's not being clear cutted out of the jungle and deforestation. So a very, very important certification. We're in the process of getting both our plantation certified, but more importantly right now our sawmill certified, so that we can process other people's lumber as well. So why teak? Why right now? Well, you can leave a legacy. We've talked about that. The investment will pay off every 25 years, pretty much once a generation for many, many generations to come. And it is a real tangible asset. It's a hard asset. It's a commodity. And if the printing presses continue to roll in U.S., Canada, Europe, and inflation continues to be a factor, and I personally think it probably will be, because I don't know how you print that much money and not have it show up somewhere in the economy. Commodities do well because commodities are real. Commodities have a use. They have a function. They tend to do either keep up with inflation, but in many cases actually do better than inflation. If it's an investment, a strict investment opportunity, you've got money sitting inside your self-directed IRA, you can actually use your self-directed IRA to acquire the teak parcel. The reason I said it had to be a strict investment is that you are prohibited from using that investment then to get a residency. If you're looking for residency as an additional component to the investment, you need to do that outside a self-directed IRA. But if you're just saying, hey, this is an investment, I like the long term, I'm going to put it in there, I'll let it roll, self-directed IRAs are great. We as a company, we accept crypto, we accept physical metals, gold, silver. We have for crypto for about 8 years now, gold and silver for 20 years. So we take alternative forms of assets as the investment in the product. And then lastly, you can obtain permanent residency with this investment. I think I have a slide coming up. Yes, I do. 2 parcels of baby teak, which is about a half acre of the teak, the baby teak, will qualify you to obtain your Panama permanent residency. Again, you own the land, you own the trees. When you have that second residency, that Plan B residency for most people, you don't have to live in Panama. You just have to show up there 1 day every 2 years. Like, how easy is that? Show up 1 day every 2 years. You can maintain a permanent residency in Panama. All the legal fees, government fees, the 2 teak parcels, $22,000 turns into about $189,000 after 25 years. But for the next 25 years, you're going to have a second residency in Panama. You're going to have that peace of mind. And for many, many people, with what's happening economically, what's happening politically, what's happening socially, a lot of people are paying attention to this and wanting to acquire that second residency. And this Teak program allows you to do that. It's a great program. Again, coming back to the numbers, if you're just into this for an investment, $7,000 turns into $95,000. If you invest in 5 of the baby teak parcels, you're eligible to also invest in one of our teenage teak plantations. All of our projections are in the business plan. Please, at the end of this, there'll be an email address. You can request the business plan. You can look at lots of details, lots of numbers about how this all comes together. And then I always mention this idea of gifting, right? If we're in our 60s and 70s and we're not sure we're going to see another 25 years, right? We have the ability as part of the tax code that we can actually gift up to $19,000 in value this year to children, to grandchildren. And so, if we want to take advantage of that gift tax exclusion, we've actually put together a nice little package. 3 parcels, which would regularly be a little over $20,000. We've put them in at $18,886. So it's about a $1,700 savings for a 3 package. It fits nicely into the gift tax exclusion. So if you wanted to gift that to a kid or a grandkid or whatever, this is a great way to do it. The other thing I want to mention is, prices of everything are going up. We talked about inflation. Our baby teak parcel prices have been $6,880 for, I don't know, 7 years, 8 years. I think since we very first started offering baby teak parcels, that price has not changed in many, many years. Everything's gone up. The newest property that we acquired for more baby teak, those prices have gone up. And actually, it's kind of interesting because this area of Darien is at the end of the Pan American Highway, and they are now extending the highway. They've paved the highway out past our plantations. They're building a bridge across a river where the road actually stopped until even right now. I don't think the bridge is finished yet, but it's in process. It'll be finished sometime this spring. And so, then the Panamanian will continue on. Prices of real estate have gone up, which is great because for all of our investors who already invested, the price of their real estate has gone up dramatically, which is a great thing. But for the new acquisition, for the new land, for the new baby teak, we're bumping the price up about $1,700. It's going to go from $6,880 to $8,680 May 1st. And so if you decide this is something you want to do, you've got 30 days to do your due diligence, look at the business plan. You even have time to hop on an airplane and fly to Panama. Tons of flights from all over the US, all over Canada, every day. You say, I want to go see those trees. Great. Come on down and see the trees. You have plenty of time to do your due diligence. And if you are invested and funded by the end of April, you'll get the $6,880 price. So it's a great reason to look at this and do something now. If this is something you've been thinking about, prices are going to go up and you can get in ahead of that. So there is the email address, info@teakhardwoods.com. We're happy to send you a copy of the business plan. This is a picture of a few of us last year out in the mature plantation doing the final analysis of volumes and getting ready to do our harvest next year. I mean, look at the size of those trees, tall, long, straight trunks. I mean, this is incredibly valuable logs that will be converted into lumber. It's exactly what you want when you use scientific management, professional management. One of those guys is Hale Forestall, the guy on the right. The guy on the left is the husband of our lawyer. And the guy in the middle, I think, is Jacobo. I'm taking that picture. But anyway, this is what you can. This is what you can own. This is what you can have as your family legacy. And for $7,000, there aren't many investments that'll return that kind of money, $95,000 on a $7,000 investment, and then do it again and again and again and again and again every 25 years. So, Betsy, I'm going to hand it back to you. Questions, we can stick around as
Yeah.
we need
Well,
to. And
also want to talk about our upcoming tour that we're having in
thank you.
June to the Teak Farm. So that will be June 22nd. We'll be heading down to the farm, see the teenage teak plantation as well as the sawmill. And then there is a second day that's a bonus day, but it's a little bit more fun. We head to the canal, so you can sign up for part of it or all of it. And if you're interested, definitely send an email to the info@Teak Hardwoods address for more information on that tour. But it's a fun day. You get to meet with Mike and I will both be there, but you get to meet with other folks who are owners at the Teak or who are thinking about becoming owners, as well as the team from Hale Forestall that Mike mentioned, who care for all of our trees that we've got.
And we'll send you home with a little jar of sawdust, teak sawdust. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, we will. So yeah, again, please reach out to info@Teak Hardwoods to get more information on that tour or any of the resources that Mike mentioned. Now is the time. If you've got any questions, feel free to type them into that Q&A box that should be down there at the bottom of your screen. But we've got a few up here that we'll start with. Are there any additional fees after the initial investment? Any annual maintenance fees?
Great question. Thank you. Yes, the annual maintenance fee is, I think, $155 this year, and it's linked to the inflation rate in Panama. So whatever the inflation rate in Panama is the amount that it can go up every year. I do expect it to continue to go up because inflation's going up, but presumably, your wages or your COLAs, if you're getting Social Security, also continue to go up based on inflation. The thing about Panama is that it's based on the US dollar. So the inflation rate in Panama pretty much mirrors the inflation rate in the US because they use the US dollar. They can't print, so they can't push themselves into hyperinflation like a lot of the countries that control their own currency do. So very stable economy, but yes, 155, I think, this year, tied to Panamanian inflation rate.
Okay, fantastic. And then we've had both Dima and Steven asking, can you please explain how US investors are taxed on this investment? Do I need to file a foreign tax return in addition to my US tax return?
That's a great question. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a tax accountant, and so I can only tell you what I do. What I do is nothing at this point because the harvest is when you actually have a income event. When the trees are growing, you own the land. There's if you own it in your own name, there's no reporting requirement of a physical piece of property that you own in your own name. If you own it in a corporation or a trust, you probably have some reporting requirements, but again, check with the lawyer or accountant on that. But income is what you are taxed on. And so if there's no income, there's no tax. Depending on how you own it, there may or may not be reporting requirements. So that would certainly be something to check with your tax accountant on.
And then I will jump in and say that for Panama, there is no income tax on the first harvest
Correct.
because it is a certified reforested property. So on that first one in Panama, there are no income taxes.
In Panama.
In Panama, do
No,
in Panama.
Panama charges no income tax.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
your home country, that you have to speak with a tax professional, which neither Mike or I are.
Exactly.
All right. Tara asked, is this cost in US dollars? I'm in Canada. Yes, Tara, it is in US dollars. Um, let's see what else. Ooh, good question. What if any diseases are teak susceptible to, and have there been any problems with that?
No diseases that I'm aware of. The plantation growing of teak started in 92, 93 in a big way in Panama. So some of the plantations have already been harvested. Again, those logs were all cut, shipped off to India, I think, mostly India,
Mhm.
and replanted. But in what would that be? 92 to now, 30 years ish. The 30 years no diseases have impacted teak. The one thing that you do have to watch out for, especially in the first 3, 4 years, is fire. And so, again, when you have professional forestry companies, they have people on site. You maintain fire breaks. You do a great job of keeping, and you saw that in the picture of the 2007. Like again, all the brush underneath the trees are cut. The trees themselves are pretty impervious to fire. And if you have your branches, again, you can see how there are no branches low. So there's really nothing to burn except for the litter around the bottom, and you can keep that to a minimum. So when you hire professional management, you reduce the risk of fire. You can never eliminate it. You cannot eliminate any risk, right? There is risk. And I always just like to say, somebody, what's the worst thing that could happen? All the trees could burn down and you'd have nothing. That is the worst thing that could happen, or they all die of some disease, right? So just understand it's a risk, but there's a reward. And when you make investments, you have to weigh those two things and invest appropriately based on that ratio, risk reward. But no plagues, no diseases, fire being the one real risk that can be mitigated to a large degree, but not completely.
Fantastic. All right. So we covered this question briefly, but is this investment considered direct land ownership, or are we general or limited partners in a company?
Direct land ownership, you receive title to your properties.
Perfect. And then do you have a continuity plan in place for all key employees and partnerships?
Yeah, we do. The main continuity plan is the Hale Forestal and the contracts we have with them to maintain the plantations over long periods of time. That continuity is important. But yeah, we have a younger generation of folks coming through the ECI organization, the sawmill organization. So yes, there is continuity at a younger generation of folks.
Okay, and then Evelyn, yes, there will be a copy of this presentation available. You should automatically all be receiving a copy within 24 hours. So be on the lookout for your email. But if you don't get that for some reason, you can email that info at Teak Hardwoods address and we can get you a copy. We've got a couple. Let's see. How does the sawmill make its money if they do not charge the teak parcel owners, or are the owners charged in addition to the 20% the management get?
Yeah, great question. You'll see that detailed on a line item in the business plan. The sawmill actually charges a processing fee to convert the log to lumber. It's in there. The 20% that we get is also line listed, and all of those fees are taken out. When we talk about return, the returns that we showed, the 7,000 turns into 95. That is net of all fees. But when you look at the business plan, each of those is broken out. And the sawmill really makes most of its money processing other lumber. The lumber coming out of the plantations that we have will be a very small percentage of the lumber that the sawmill processes.
Okay. All right, let's see, what else do we have? Oh, while the trees are growing, is it possible to get a carbon credits program, if any, in Panama and sell them yearly?
Sadly, no. It's a pretty complicated process. We've looked into it. It's it's bureaucratic and it's challenging. Let me just say that. And with the size of our plantations, total number of plantations that we have in Panama might be maybe 450, 500 acres now. I don't know, something like that. It's still way too small to have the work of going through the process to be able to get carbon credits. The carbon credits you would get for the 400 or 500 acres really isn't worth the work. If you have thousands of acres, then it is worth it. At several hundred, it's not.
All right. And then you mentioned the price increase for the baby teak.
Yeah.
Marilyn asked, is there a price increase set for the teenage teak in May?
No, we already own that land. We've already completed the hardest part of the maintenance on that. At this point, we're down to one final, what I call large thinning, and then maybe every year you go in and selectively thin, you know, two, three, four trees. I mean, it just the ones that aren't doing well. So no, the teenage teak is remaining where it is, at least for the time being.
Okay. And John, I'm going to answer this question. Can I let others know about this teak investment? Absolutely. We love referrals from friends. Feel free to send them the recording once you get that. You can also have them reach out to this info at teakhardwoods.com. Yeah, please spread it like wildfire. Share it to friends and family who might be interested. The best neighbors are friends. So. Let's see. We got Evelyn asked, is insurance recommended, i.e. fire risk or other such things?
There's really no insurance company in Panama that would insure this. People said, "What about Lloyd's of London?" I mean, they insure everything, and they do, they will. But the cost of it, again, if we had 10,000 acres, the economy of scale there might make sense. But with hundreds of acres, it's not. So, the risk is there that fire, can happen, and that just has to be measured and evaluated as part of your investment decision.
All right, and we've got a couple of questions here about the cost of residency. So do you want to go back to that slide, Mike, if you can, if you're able to? You might be.
That one?
That's the one, yes.
Okay.
So Sharon and Michelle, looks like you both asked about the cost of the residency. So that is just about $22,000. It includes the two parcels of baby teak plus all of the legal and government fees to apply for the Panama Friendly Nations visa. So feel free to send us an email. We can get you more information on what that process looks like. You do have to go down to Panama to begin the residency process. That's probably the number one question that we get. You do have to be there in person. You and any family members that are applying with you must be present in order to get your permanent residency cards. Okay, got that one. Um, is residency possible with a gift? I don't, with the gift tax, do you
I,
know?
I think, yeah, I think you could skin that cat. If you were to, if you were to gift the 19,000, right? Just for the full amount. If you were to gift the cash to, a child, for example, into their bank account, and then the child was to use that money, they have to be a major, they can't be a minor, right? But anyone
Mhm.
over 18. So a child over 18, you gift them the 19,000, they take that 19,000 and they make that investment. Then the answer is yes. you could, the difference of whatever that is, what, three grand, I think the three
Mhm.
grand difference would have to be made up somehow. But yes, that would be the process by which you could use the gift tax exclusion for 2025, and have the child then qualify for the residency. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. So Bonnie has a great question. She was just down at Grand Pacifica in Nicaragua, and she's wondering, are there any plans for a sawmill there or
Yes.
just in
Hi,
Panama?
Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie. Good to hear from you. Thanks for joining us. Um, yeah, and so I think our oldest teak now at Grand Pacific is maybe 5 or 6 years old. I don't
Mhm.
remember, but as the teak gets into the early 20s, yeah, we will definitely be putting a sawmill in there. And the other thing is we've been watching other people planting many species, teak being one of the species in Nicaragua, but there are many other species that are being planted in forestry programs. So probably our Nicaragua sawmill will not be a teak specific sawmill, but will be a mill that can certainly, saw the teak, and we'll have markets identified. We'll have buyers identified from our Panama business, but we'll also have other species of trees in Nicaragua that we would process through that mill as well.
All right. And then LB asked, if there is no other return from the trees except in 25 years, is it possible to sell my parcel 10 to 15 years down the road?
Yes, you own it. It's yours. Keep it, sell it, gift it. Yeah, you own it. You have title to it. It's yours.
Looks like we've got time for a couple more here.
Okay.
James is asking, is there enough acreage available for expansion? For instance, can you purchase 1,000 acres if funds were available?
Yes, if somebody came to us, I mean, the farms generally are not that big. We bought a 300-acre farm, um, and uh, and there may be some larger farms as well. But yes, I mean, you might have to do it in 2 farms or 3 farms. But if you wanted 1,000 acres of teak, there's certainly deforested cattle pasture that would qualify. So part of the process, you can't buy jungle, cut it down, and plant teak, right? The reforestation program is specifically for reforestation of degraded land. So you might have to buy 3 farms of 300 acres or 5 farms of 200 of cattle pasture that you could then manage as one plantation, and you can get them probably fairly close to one another as well, so that the logistical elements of caring for those plantations could be managed by Heo Forestall or one of the other companies there very, very efficiently.
All right. And then this is a great question, Tara. If I purchase a quarter acre, can I upgrade to a residence later, paying the difference?
Hmm. Betsy, I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
I believe with the Friendly Nations visa, it is possible. I believe it's a cumulative investment. But don't quote me on that. We would need to check with our legal team to confirm. I know that there's a couple different visa options. One requires a lump sum, and one is sort of a cumulative calculation of your investments in Panama.
Yeah, maybe that would be a great question to email in to the info,
Hmm.
and we'll
Yeah.
pick it up. And one of our residency consultants, Betsy, maybe, I don't know, somebody could figure it out and let you know. That's a great
We
question.
will we'll look for an answer for you, Tara. And then Dima, I'm not quite sure. I think we covered this already, but what are the ongoing costs of owning land with growing teak that is managed for you in Panama? Are you asking for outside of the maintenance fees? It just if you can maybe send us an email so we can
Mhm.
get the most accurate answer there. Because I'm a little unsure. All right, and I think that let's see. Uh Leah is asking, do you ECI have sustainable living sites like Nicaragua in Panama? I don't know if you want to touch on this one, Mike, but
I can. We do not at this point. We have a development project there that is ongoing right now with permitting. Once we get it's more zoning than actual permitting, but once we get our zoning released, then we can start our actual community design and apply for permits on that. So we're probably still 12 to 18 months away from having something in Panama. But yes, we own the land, and we're in process right now with the government agencies to get our zoning, and then followed up with the development plan and permitting. So yeah, stay tuned. Actually, if you can send an email on that separately, or just same email
Mhm.
address, but just homes in Panama, something like that, we'll make sure that we keep you up to date with what's happening on that front.
Okay, and then we've got one last question here from Elena. Could combining the teenage teak and the baby teak be used for residency? You kind of touched on this briefly, Mike, that the teenage teak is available with the purchase of 5 of the newborn teak parcels.
Right.
But yes, it is possible
And
with
then
that combination.
right, you would qualify really
Yeah.
on the baby teak. The 5 baby teak parcels would qualify you for the residency. Then you're entitled to invest also in the teenage. So yeah, that works.
All right. Well, we're just right about at 5:59 here. So if you have any other questions that come up after, or if you watch this again, definitely please email those to info@teakhardwoods.com. Or if you're interested in joining me and Mike in Panama in June to come down to the farm, or if you, yeah, anything else that comes up with Teak, just email it over to info@teakhardwoods.com. And any last words, Mike?
Thanks, Betsy. I appreciate you being here to help out and answer questions that I can't. And Diego's remaining invisible, but Diego, thanks for your IT support. And really, folks, if this is something that you've been thinking about, I know many of you have been on these webinars before. I've met many of you over the years at various conferences. If this is something that's on your mind and it's something you want to do, please do it this month. I mean, there's every reason to keep the extra $1,700 in your pocket. Take advantage of the fact that we have these baby parcels on land that we already bought, and as we head out to acquire new land, the prices are going to go up, and we'll see what happens with inflation. But now's the time to do it. So really appreciate everyone being here tonight, and look forward to seeing many of you in Panama on the Discovery Tour too.
Yes. All right. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thanks, everybody.